That's the beauty. It's also the toughest thing about doing documentaries on live sport. The answer is set in stone. You don't know what the resolution is, and essentially the way we've made all four of these is we're there following the story as it unravels. That's like really hard, but it's also incredibly addictive, and just to immerse yourself in that is something that is just really like, I don't know, just love it.
Rowing, letting us in those rooms, and that wasn't remote camera, that was me in that room witnessing someone get cut. Like, that rowing is so brutal because it's so personal. It's not a team going through something together. It's an individual sports person finding out that the thing that they've worked so hard for 4 years, or in most cases a lot longer, it was heart-wrenching, yeah.
But when FIFA knock on your door and go, hey, can you throw us a quote and a pitch, you do it.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they ended up going with us, and then we worked with another mob from the UK, so it was a kind of a co-production. But that project was, I think it's probably going to be like a unicorn, like a one and only kind of opportunity.
The village is a really special place. You sort of feel like you're in the center of the universe there, while the biggest thing in the world is happening and you're in the sort of the beating heart of it. It's an amazing feeling.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Massive Flats, here in the Flats with the Good Shout team. Welcome, lads.
G'day, Nick. Thanks for having us here at Mustard Flats.
A pleasure. You guys have been very busy lately, so it's good to catch you in the city of Canberra, but you're normally off around the world following our Australia's best athletes and making movies about them. So how has the last few months been? Most recently working on the Olympics.
It's been big, probably in one word.
I'll say it's been tiring as a second word.
Yeah, I think that's definitely
I can imagine. Yeah.
We have worked in Olympic and Paralympic sports since we started the business. And so every time a games year comes around, we know it's big. And this year we chased the long form stuff, the doco stuff, and all very fulfilling stuff. I'm keen to talk about, how we did it, who we followed, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was a bit of a dream come true, really. Hey, Nico.
Absolutely. Dream come true, but also just an absolute, push yourself out of your comfort zone and take a massive swing and see what happens and see what lands. So pretty ambitious year. But we came out the other side and came out with a smile. So
And a story.
Unreal. And so for those that don't know, you have been covering the Olympics, Winter Olympics, Paralympics for years, where you're at the games. But this time, I think it was the first time you sort of before the games worked with Nine on some feature-length sort of documentaries in the lead up. So that's just an added time dedicated at the start there. And these were on at prime time slots, so big projects.
Yeah, it's right. We set out a goal, maybe 3-4 years ago, Nico, like after Tokyo?
It was probably, straight after Tokyo.
That we
What's
wanted
the next challenge? Yeah.
What's the next thing? And the thing that we set ourselves a task of was to do a long form thing for a big platform, whether that be a streaming platform or a major network. And we would have been very happy if we got one big one in this Olympic cycle, but we ended up getting 4. So we did the official film for FIFA for the 23 Women's World Cup here in Australia, into an NRLW doco with the Raiders women's team in their inaugural season, and then these 2 in the Olympics and Paralympics with Race to Paris and Forged in Steel with the wheelchair rugby team.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And we'll get to the Olympic stuff, but we might start with the Women's World Cup doco. Quite a time to start on that project, and in hindsight, what that World Cup turned out to be for Australia was just insane. How was that jumping in as the first one then?
Yeah, it was proper deep end, hey?
Yeah.
Like, we weren't sure whether or not we were going to actually pitch for it. We thought we were a really outside chance. And Nico, you can probably tell the story on the pitch, Good Friday.
Yeah, one of the great days. So the pitch for the doco came through. Well, we got the request really, really late in the piece. I think they were making a decision like a week or 2 weeks after we got this email saying, hey, do you want to throw your hat in the ring? Brett and I aren't the strongest writers. We back ourselves as videographers. So we thought, well, you know what? We're pretty late in the piece here. Let's just take a big old swing and make a video. So we got into our little studio, made a video, and when I think back on it,
It's probably very cringe, hey?
I reckon it was pretty cringe, but we pretty much just said, g'day FIFA, we're Bretto, we're Nico.
We're from Belco.
Yeah, we thank you for the opportunity. Here's why we think you should work with us. And we produced maybe like a 10-minute pitch to them, literally on Good Friday, and pretty much just didn't think that anything was going to come from it. But when FIFA knock on your door and go, hey, can you throw us a quote and a pitch, you do it.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they ended up going with us, and then we worked with another mob from the UK, so it was a kind of a co-production. But that project was, I think it's probably going to be like a unicorn, like a one and only kind of opportunity. It was crazy what we had to do. It was pretty much be at the World Cup for the entirety of the World Cup, but we had to deliver the final product 1 hour after the trophy was lifted on the final night.
Wow.
That was the deadline.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, we did not stick the landing.
No, it was about 6 or 7 hours later, which was a thing, and caused a few headaches at the time. But in the end, had a happy ending. It ended up playing on BBC One at 10 p.m. Like 2 days later after we delivered it, and so mostly all was forgiven, and it was actually a great success. And then so that then set us up. We learnt all these tough lessons through that process with that ridiculous deadline to then put in place to the next 3 that we did, being able to stand on our own 2 feet a little bit more, because it was a bigger crew sort of team effort. Like Nico said, we co-pro'd with a UK company, and so then the next 3 were us standing on our own 2 feet.
And I think with that job particularly, it was such a deep end job, and we were so out of our comfort zone, and there was so much just learning about how to do these long form things every day, and we were just so out of our depths, but kept going through and rolled our sleeves up and just kind of charged on through. I think by the end of it, maybe there was a bit of an unsatisfaction, or we weren't completely happy with how we nailed the ending of it. So for me personally, I think it did light a really big fire in my belly to go, okay, that was that. It wasn't a massive failure. It wasn't a massive success. We got through it, but I really want to see how we can go at another one. And I think that was one of the big motivators to then keep chasing these type of long form projects. So that was last year, and now we're here the back end of 2024, and we've got 3 more under our belt. So that was quite the fire that was ignited, I guess.
It's pretty impressive. And not to harp on it, but what was the cause of? Was it just that it's an unrealistic deadline for that type of project anyway, or was it? Yeah, did something happen? What happened there?
Mix of things. In some ways, you can look at it and go, "Oh, that was the perfect storm of bad luck." But then when you really step back, okay, if you make your own luck, then there's probably some decisions we made, and then some decisions that were forced upon us that contributed there.
Yeah.
So IT failures at the stadium on the night of the final was a big one. But then in theory, we had the choice whether to do it at the stadium or back at the broadcast centre. We chose the stadium because that was going to be the quickest.
Yeah.
Stuff like last minute requests coming in at half time for scenes that had happened like 4 days ago, and so we just had to scramble and
So
and
you're
try.
editing along the way.
Exactly right. Yeah. So we had 48 in the plan was it was a 52-minute doco, have 48 minutes completely
Set in stone.
and then we rock up to that final, knowing that the edit of the final has to be 4 minutes to drop in, and so then you go, okay, 4-minute edit on the night of the final, then feels
That's
a bit more achievable
yeah.
now. And then when you get to midday, lunchtime, the night of the final, and you're still getting requests to change captions and sound effects for the ball hitting the back of the net, stuff like that, you start going, oh, how are we going to go here?
Yeah.
And I think we can sometimes be the victim of our own optimism sometimes, and we definitely were in that case. And so, yeah, it was a long night.
It was a big night. Sometimes I think the more compelling documentary would have been a documentary crew following us making that documentary on that last night.
Totally.
But yeah, lessons learnt. And
if we want to play with the big dogs, then we got to, we have to be able to. The thing that in the back of our mind the whole time was we have no power here. We're this tiny company that this big behemoth FIFA have given us the go. We're working on the official film. Yeah. Once we get through this, no matter how, at least we've got then a run on the board to say we can now point to, hey, we've done something big enough that's living up in lights on FIFA Plus, and that was played at prime time on the BBC, and it paid off in spades when we're talking with Nine a year later, and they go, okay, that's great, but what have you done? And we can now go, all right, for all that pain that we went through there, we can point to it and say that was us. So now you should back us, and they did. I think and hope it paid off for them as well.
And what about the experience of as sports fans and just the shift almost in the culture of Australian and the Matildas at that time, and being in that front row seat? What was that like on the sidelines? Following that story as it was happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was courtside in the semi-final with Australia and UK, and when Sam Kerr struck that ball from outside the box and it went toppies, I've never heard a crowd go as loud as it went on that night. So that was quite a special moment, and one that I was pretty grateful to be there for. In terms of how we told the story along the way, it was a big puzzle piece, and following a narrative of all these teams, which story thread do you go down? Where do you focus? That was such a huge challenge, I guess. And yeah, you'd be able to speak more to that.
Yeah, we're just chasing our tail a lot, because the story in a nutshell was, here are the biggest moments that you remember from the games, sort of thing. And what we realized as we were going was the biggest moments can really only be decided in so much hindsight. Australia were facing being knocked out if they lost against Canada, I think, in the group stages or something. And so if Australia got knocked out, then that was then going to be their big moment and one of the big moments of the games, them getting knocked out in the group stage. And so we had to throw everything at that game in case that was their big moment out. And so I remember that being days of planning and work and wrangling crews, and threw everything at it. And then they won, which is great. But now that's not, we know now that's not a significant part of their story compared to
where they went and
where they
what
go.
they achieved. Yeah.
And so it was just doing so many hours that were going to be burnt, but you had to do them, because if that did, in hindsight, end up being a big moment, then it had to make it. But that's what makes it sort of a sport in itself, and that's why we do it, and that's the big privilege, to be pitch side like you were, Nico, and feeling it there, with the grass beneath your feet, and also to just feel like you said, Nick, the way that it took over the nation, we sort of feel like we're in the center of the biggest thing happening in the sporting world at that time, and that's exactly why we do it, and exactly why it's so addictive, and we keep turning up.
And the the challenge of that storytelling. In that case, you're in a few ways that was an issue because you were locking in the edit as you were kind of going, so you don't know where you're going to start in a way to where you ended up. And then on top of that, while it was a world event, and while the Australian story might be big here, you're also needing to find other ones in there as well.
Yeah.
How was that doing that? Because you don't have that hindsight you were talking about in this case. You were cutting as you were going.
Yes, and so getting our head around. Thankfully, we had, and I think one of the reasons why they had us partner with this UK company is because a lot of the crew from the UK were football specialists. We had a couple of football specialists in our crew as well, but or more than a couple. But that's not me. I'm a big sports fan, but not entirely a football nut. Right, so it's not my thing. And so trying to get our head around the big teams was pretty easy because the narrative is just there. You know, the US are the big dogs. You know, Australia's the home favourites. But the context that we had to learn for like the rest of the world was something we had to do on the run. And then another thing that was revealed halfway was that we had to use native language interviews for whoever we were featuring at the time.
Right.
And so
with
we didn't know that.
Yeah, native language captions and
and then if we were to use a highlight from Germany game, then we need to use the German commentary as well.
Wow.
And then now, so
you're going through the German commentary. Okay, great, we got the German commentary. Wait, I don't speak German.
now we're going to translate this.
so then literally, because you're editing on the fly and every day that, day timer is ticking down, like you just find someone who knows German in the FIFA team and then they come into your edit suite and go, oh yeah, they're saying that the kettle is on the boil.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah. The steam is on the boil.
The steam is on the boil.
I'm like, okay. So we put steamers on the boil. I go, yeah.
So you put steamers on the boil and it goes up to the
producer. Someone else comes in and goes, what is this steam on the boil thing?
It means they're under pressure.
Yeah. So we put under pressure?
Yeah.
So,
by the way, it's due in 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
And is that just a FIFA thing? Like all their docos are done that way or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was the thing to get our head around.
Yeah.
This is a global audience.
Yeah.
And they can't be seen to be, being too, Anglo-centric or whatever. Which is absolutely correct. And
100%. We just never had.
We just didn't know. We're just like, we're from Belco. So.
Yeah. We just make like social media videos and we want to see if we can make like documentaries.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to give us a shot, FIFA? Okay, cool.
Yeah. That was what was going in our head. But of course, externally we're going, oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, we can do.
Yeah, the kettle is actually on the boil.
Yeah, kettle's on the boil right now, yeah. With the 50th pot of coffee for the night.
Oh, crazy. And so then that was when you moved, and we at the similar time the Raiders.
At the same time,
team,
the Raiders women's team were playing, and our crew back in the office in Canberra were at training a couple of times a week and at the game every week.
Yeah.
And so that was a big juggling act.
We pretty much had half the crew kind of working on the FIFA one, and then guys back home, the other half, Yeah, and big shout out to Samantha Hosking, who was leading the shooting on that one, and she was embedded in the team with the girls for the whole year and travelled to away games and was in the sheds and it was her first long form thing as well, and so we're trying to guide her while doing FIFA as we're learning on the run. And she's learning on the run, and Canberra,
yeah.
But again, when opportunities come knocking on your door and the Canberra Raiders go, hey, like we're thinking of doing a documentary to mark the inaugural season of our women's team. Like that's Bretto and I are tragic Raiders fans as well. So that
That was an automatic yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
we'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
we'll do
it.
it.
Yeah.
You just take the opportunities. But again, that was a big job to learn about, okay, what is access and what type of access do we want to tell the stories that we want to do. And again, just helped us inform for the next one that came along. It's a bit boring, but post-production workflows and processes in managing like terabytes of data and stuff, like a lot of that was kind of, we cut our teeth on during these projects, and then allowed us to be that little bit more equipped for the next opportunity.
And so what was the strategy, I guess, in covering a whole season of a league in a way versus the big events like the Olympics or where they're similar time frames, but you are following a more dedicated story for a longer period of time?
Yeah. So with the FIFA experience so big in our minds at that time, we sort of thought, well, that whole thing was based around the big moments of the World Cup, and we're like, well, obviously the Raiders' first season, it's a logical starting point to have how the season played out and the big moments of the season as some kind of spine, but that's not nearly interesting enough as a documentary. And so what else does it need? And it's got to be character driven, right?
That was the big kind of aha moment, or the big like, okay, cool. When we focus on characters and have these characters drive the story, and we learn and care about these characters, that makes an interesting documentary.
Because then when you go to the big moment on the field, then it means so much more. And
because who's part of the moment, the characters you've been following, and and it seems simple, but you kind of got to do it and then go, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. But then also the everything that led up to this first season as well, like we wanted to make sure we were doing enough consultation with all of the key stakeholders in that first, in like getting an NRLW team up at all for the Raiders, and talk to them. And then sooner or later we're talking to Katrina Fanning, who's like a local rugby league legend, and she's talking about the games in the 80s and 90s that she was a part of, and they're doing fundraising nights and playing in the men's jerseys, and getting changed in the car parks because they're not allowed in the sheds because the boys are still in there, and all those sorts of stories. And we're like, oh shit, that cannot not make it. So once we started speaking to characters like that, then it's like, okay, that needs to be in there, right? Like that's so important to if this whole thing's going to be on the Raiders' first season as a NRLW team. Well, in some ways, that's actually the end of a journey as well as a start. And so Katrina was amazing at speaking to all of that.
Yeah, awesome. I had hoped to be able to bring up some clips, but because it's on 9 now, it won't let me show it while I've got OBS open.
Right.
But I'll try and slot some stuff in. But if you are listening at home, they are available on 9 now, and the FIFA one as well. The same story. There were some those finding the story outside the actual game in the Raiders game, and the things like the ball kid getting the contract, and those things really made that show. So really cool to see that. And then with the game, when you're attacking a documentary like this, you are always hoping that they're gonna win the grand final. First season, that's the ultimate story. And what are the chances that we covered the whole thing? How did you approach that unknown ending in that case with the Raiders show?
It's a great question.
So we knew that going in. Like we did all this scenario planning on, okay, what if they come last and don't win a game? Then what does it look like? Do we can it? What does it look like? And then it's obvious to then plan the easier to plan for the great thing that happens if they win the premiership. And then being the first season, we just felt as though we would always have the conclusion or the resolution to fall back on that, hey, well, we still did it. We still started this thing. Let's now project forward and think about the young girl in 15 years' time who hopefully is on a huge money contract playing in front of thousands of people at a brand new stadium in the city in Canberra. And she can still watch this and know the women who started the very first team.
Yeah, and one of the things that came out in the conversations with Darren, head coach, like early on, was having something that future players down the track can watch and see, oh, okay, this is the beginning. This was where it started. This is the foundation of the club. So we always had that. I guess, we're fortunate that it was the inaugural year. That was the thing that we relied on if the results didn't go to the big, grand final win, as you say. And yeah, I think that's kind of what we achieved. This is just the beginning and the foundation, and things will, continue to grow over there. And
it did help that they went all the way to the end of the season and they had to win by 12 points or something.
Yeah.
So then that gave us enough jeopardy to
there was
build
enough
it
momentum, to drive it to that last game.
Yeah.
It would have been awesome if they snuck into the final for sure. Of course, but it didn't go down that way. But from an editing point of view, it did give us enough steam to drive it out and hang on to your edge of your seat.
So there was still a will they, won't they all the way till the end, to the last round, to the last game, which is good. If they were knocked out of if they had no chance of the finals with like 4 games left or 3 games left, I don't know how we would have done that. We would have come up with something, but as soon as that doesn't happen, then you can stop worrying about that and just move on to troubleshooting the other million decisions you got to make.
100%. And I think it's like on a bigger point, that's the beauty. It's also the toughest thing about doing documentaries on live sport. The answer is set in stone. You don't know what the resolution is. And essentially the way we've made all 4 of these is we're there following the story as it unravels. That's like really hard, but it's also incredibly addictive, and just to immerse yourself in that is something that is just really like, I don't know, you just love it.
Yeah.
But it's tough because the story can just go. And with Race to Paris, I think there's like heaps of anecdotes in that.
Yeah,
where
that's like 20 examples of that.
Yeah, and the that interview with the player that's all bloodied, and it's just like an awesome interview.
Yeah,
it didn't matter what the result was at the end there. You knew what they'd gone through and where they are going.
Yeah,
like they're going to be a team to beat.
Yeah. And so that was Samai Mataufa, the co-captain.
Yeah.
We always had her sort of a pretty big character of the doco. And then when we got that interview at the end with her all bloody and stuff, and also just having gotten to know her a bit more throughout the season, then we thought, no, she's going to be a really big character. So then we actually did her master interview at the end of the season, and it features out sort of throughout it. Yeah. She talks about her old man and all that sort of stuff. And so then you need to leave the door open to some re-engineering as well, because if something pops up, then you've got to go with it. If you just know that it's strong.
If your story's too locked in, or you're going or too prescribed, then you're going to miss.
So that one interview did change it in a way. The whole doco.
Not the whole doco, but definitely a significant amount of it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, like in the end, we featured the Quinlan sisters and Semaima sort of the most.
Yeah,
and it'd be pretty different structurally if we didn't do the Semaima thing, because
she just like wore her heart on her sleeve.
And exactly. Yeah,
was just so open.
Yeah,
to telling the story, and so it was like simple decision to just follow it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and the one final on that point, on the Raiders is, were you there shooting that final game? But either of you?
I was there in the Titans game. Yeah.
And the moment in the change rooms, in the lockers. How was that in that moment where they're getting smashed and it's not the time you'd usually go and hang around and get footage of people? What was that like?
Yeah, so with that one, we weren't physically in the room. We put a remote mic up and rigged a few mics and put a remote camera up.
Right.
And so
By design.
Yeah.
by design. I mean, if we had the ability to, so the access sort of went in and out a little bit, being the first season and a first time coach as well. It was a negotiation.
Makers.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It was a negotiation, but the fact that they, let us have a remote camera in there and mics and stuff was awesome. And we were listening from outside the door, and yeah, it's really conflicting because you're kind of going, oh my God, you're invested in this team now. You feel all the pain that they're feeling. And as well, you're making a documentary and you're going, oh yeah, this is gold. Keep going, So
It's the weirdest feeling.
it is, yeah. And it's kind of cynical. I think the more we do these, maybe the more jaded and cynical we'll get, or the more
We mustn't.
we must not. That should be something we try not to do, right? But but at the end of the day, that's the truth, right? And that's what happened. Football players get sprays. It happened, and that's what people know. What happened? That's what people want to see. Everyone knows that happens.
Yeah.
And there's serious sports people who care a lot about what they do, and I hope Raiders fans watch that and understand the context of it and enjoy that. And I'm sure the players and coaches do as well in hindsight. It's not fun to go through at the time, but the fact that it's now recorded for history, we know that they know the power of that.
Oh, definitely. Do you guys watch a lot of the sport doco genre, like the series ones, the Last Chance You and Wrexham, and what inspiration do you get from shows like that?
Yeah, so before we really started making them ourselves, I loved it because I'd take notes and it would be all inspirational and stuff. And now I watch them, but it feels like a bit more homework or something.
Like homework,
yeah, I still enjoy it, but
I think we've lived in the sports doco for a big chunk of the year. Before we took on these, it's kind of a sad thing, but I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to just sit down and immerse myself in one, but I haven't gone near one.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't.
Right.
I haven't since
Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Since Race to Paris was delivered, and then we went off to Paris. I haven't wanted to go near one. I just think I need a bit of a break, and of course I'll go back into it once that fire gets ignited again.
And almost from a creative point, you want to come into things with a clear head,
100%,
not influenced too heavily one way or the other.
Yeah.
The one thing that we're just we're going to put a ban on, that I think so many people do these days, is the whole start an interview shot and then someone sits down and
the clapper.
Sorry, which one?
Yeah.
We're not doing that at Good Shout anymore.
No,
it's been done to death.
We'll start doing it here at the Mustard Flux podcast. Yeah.
Sorry, which?
Yeah. We'll get a take of you guys sitting down soon. Yeah.
Let's do it. Just for one final sign off.
Sign off of the throat. I've got a clapper here too. Yeah, cool. And it leads in the locker room stuff, the tough moments you're capturing, leads well into the Olympics docos, and you did two. You did Race to Paris, Forged in Steel. First Race to Paris, that was a show leading up to the selection of a few sports, and like the locker room, there was a lot of those moments where you're allowed access into the room where they are given the news if their dream is going to come true or not.
That's right.
And you guys are set up in there with cameras. What was that like on that project?
So I think maybe a bit of context, that the thing that even got us starting to have the conversation with Channel 9 about doing a documentary like this was the fact that we're the on-team videographers for the swim team and the rowing team. And that's what kind of opened the door. Like there is already a trust and there is already a familiarity with Bretto and I between the athletes. If you don't have that that kind of trust with the athletes, it would have been way harder to get the access that we got. Oh, and not just the athletes, the coaches, the high performance, the whole kind of system. So we really did sell ourselves and sell our positions as the on-team videographers to Channel 9 to allow that access to happen. And then, yeah, once it was on, the sports were great, right? Great. Particularly rowing. They let us in every facet of the way.
Yeah, yeah, they were all amazing. There's nothing really that we really wanted. There's hardly anything that we asked for that we didn't get.
Exactly, yeah.
But rowing, letting us in those rooms, and that wasn't remote camera. That was me in that room witnessing someone get cut. Like that rowing is so brutal, and that was similar thing, but because it's so personal, it's not a team going through something together. It's an individual sports person. Yeah. Finding out that the thing that they've worked so hard for 4 years, or in most cases a lot longer, it was heart-wrenching, yeah. And in those, like some of those moments were so strong that you don't like. It didn't twig in my mind, like, you know, oh, this is gold, or like that came later, kind of thing, because you're just in the moment there with that person,
and you're feeling the feelings that they're feeling, and
yeah, you've got to know them as well, and obviously their stories there. Is it awkward, or is it or you're just in the zone as well?
I wouldn't say it was awkward. I think if we can well, I'll tell the story of how that happened, right? So because we were asking, hey, can we get in these rooms? And they were like, yeah, we think so, but as long as everyone's happy. And then once we got in actually at trials, I just asked the direct question, because we had we had all the coaches mic'd up. We had earpieces in listening to all the coaches, and then we had heard the coaches arranging what they call an exit interview, going to cut someone. And so then we go, okay, we've overheard this conversation. We know you've got a exit interview at 11. Can we get in? And so the high performance director says, yes, I'm okay with it. Go and ask the two coaches. Yep. And then they're like, yes, okay, you can if you get the athlete to say yes. And I said, okay, how do you want me to do that? And they said, well, you're just going to have to go ask them. So when they get told that they have an exit interview, it's in like the finish tower at the rowing course there in Sydney, and they know that they are walking into a meeting. They have an inkling what that meeting is about, but they're not told that the meeting they're rocking up to is an exit interview meeting. And so I had to stand there at the bottom of the tower, wait for the athlete to come, and before they went up the stairs to go in the meeting, I had to look them in the eye and say, hey, if you are at all comfortable for me to be present in the room, I'd love to, but it's completely your decision. And then they just sort of give me an answer in the moment. And I think we asked 7 athletes, and 6 said yes, and we got 1 no, which is amazing.
That is pretty good.
And a lot of them were teary yeses, and it was really confronting, but such a privilege. And I just take my hat off to the coaches, the high performance, but the athlete in particular for saying yes in that moment when they're so filled with anxiety and feeling so insecure, I'm sure. To say yes in that moment is a pretty special thing. And so, it's one of the things I look back most fondly on, is the way that they trusted us.
They did, throughout the whole process, we were just trusted. We were also left to our own devices in a way. I think that was probably one of the main different things that we've experienced from rocking up for a client, getting a brief. Okay, we need to hit these, hit these videos, hit these social media outputs. For the doco, it was pretty much Brett and I arriving at the start of trials, and there was a quick little Oh, and by the way, guys, this is Brett and Nico. They're filming this documentary. They might come tap you on the shoulder for a chat. And they'll be floating around getting vision. And that was it. We were just like kind of out there fishing, hunting for the story.
Yeah.
If we didn't pick up on those conversations from the coaches about those exit interviews, it wasn't like there was another kind of person to be like,
yeah, they weren't going to come to us and say, hey, we're doing this, like you should come. Like there was a little bit of that, and they were great, but they've got a job, so they're trying to pick the Olympic rowing team.
Yeah.
And it was, once we realized that, we're like, oh yeah, we just got to like advocate for ourselves and just get in where we need to get in, and don't be afraid to ask the question. Then nothing was really given to us on a silver plate. But the door was open. And
Exactly.
we just had to pay enough attention to know where to go and who to ask and what to ask.
yeah, and like the Lucy Stefan moment as well. Like we had one of the coaches mic'd up and just happened to pick up on a certain shift in the way our conversation was happening. And then I remember I was processing footage upstairs. I think you were floating around, get a call being like, get down here with the second camera. We need an alternate angle. There's a conversation happening. There's a moment happening. And so then you rush down and you're trying to set up, but you don't want to scare the moment away. You know, you've got Lucy and you've got John having a moment, and Lucy's having a confidence, like a crisis of confidence, and you want to capture it. You want to do it, but you don't want to interfere. You want to just get that authentic moment as it plays out, and then deal with, like, you figure it out later. If it's gone too far, if it's too revealing, of course, like, you want to have the athlete be okay with that. And you had the conversation with Lucy, and
yeah, so it was sort of reverse, right? Like for the context, Lucy Stefan, gold medalist from Tokyo, absolute legendary Australian rower who is more towards the end of her career and feeling the young girls coming up. And she's really not happy with her results at trials, and she feels like she's losing it, and she's pouring her heart out to this coach because she's exhausted after 4 days of grueling testing and racing. And she didn't know that John had a mic on at the time, and we were far enough away that she didn't notice our cameras. And so we had to then broach the topic with her after the fact, not before the fact, like the exit interviews.
And again, the trust that she's literally said, like, I trust you guys. So
yeah, we had to get her permission, and she said, well, yeah, I trust you guys. And we gave her the way we were treating that story, and we did an interview with her afterwards, reflecting on that moment and how she's going and all that sort of stuff. So the thing had to have a beginning, middle, and end to it, because you can't just put someone's crisis of confidence up and then move on to the next moment and just go, that was a good bit of drama, let's go on to the next thing. If you can give everyone the respect of telling the beginning, middle, and end of that moment or their story, or whatever a fair way is to tell a full story on something and not just an excerpt. Of course, everything's an excerpt because life just goes on. But if you can be fair enough to give a full narrative on any little topic or any little person's experience, especially something like that, then it's the only right thing to do.
I think, and rowing was quite unique. Like, so the Race to Paris is split into the 3 sports. So we've got the swimming, the rowing, and the athletics. Rowing was the one sport where we didn't go in with, maybe we should focus here. We're like, we'll embed ourselves into trials and we will find the story that pops up. Yeah. And that was a tricky approach, but the way and the stories that we got, like, you know, Jean Mitchell's story came out of that approach, not on the radar at all. Then cancer survivor story ends up rowing herself onto the team against all the odds. Like, one of the best, well, probably my personal favorite story of the rowing. With that approach, that's how we were able to get that. And so there's like the lesson there was there's a time and place to go in clear-minded, and there is also a time and place to go, all right, we need to be like, what is the moment that we're chasing here? Is it, and we'll talk about the swimming and the aths, I guess.
Jean Mitchell, the cancer survivor who made the team, we interviewed her on the last day of trials like a couple of hours before we got in the car after a 7-day shoot to leave. And
It was the last interview
I
off
just
the
thought,
show.
I'll get a reaction from Jean because she seemed to sort of have a good week and wasn't really like a shoe-in for the team. So I'll just get a quick reaction. And she said just in that interview, like, yeah, I never thought I'd be in the mix for the team, having survived cancer when I was 16. And I just went, what? How is she not in our notes? And there was a good reason why she wasn't in our notes, because she wasn't part of the National Training Centre, which like 98% of the team always come from. So we spent a lot of time at the National Training Centres, ignored everyone else out there, outside, because we don't have endless budget and we can't go do research on every single person. But then we went, oh my God, like, do we have enough of Jean? Did we incidentally get enough of Jean in these last 7 days? Turns out we did, because of how hard we were going and just how comprehensive we were trying to do it. But then again, we did her master interview
After the fact.
Once
we knew.
Wove it through.
And the other cool thing about that, on the back of that conversation, when Jean was in the mix, like she had known, wasn't there like a, oh yeah, I still haven't called
No,
my...
I asked her, I said, by the way, have you... Because she at that point, she had realised she was in the team.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, by the way, have you told your parents yet?
And she was like, no, I was going to... And then, can we film that?
Yeah, I was just about to call Dad, actually.
And that's, again, one of the crazy...
Great.
Like, most...
Can you hold on 10 minutes and call him on camera, and it'll be a cool moment.
And we might place you beneath the Olympic rings. And
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just happened, and it was good.
Wow.
That was a nice, good moment, yeah.
Yeah. And how have you heard back from some of these athletes about their reaction to the finished products occasionally?
Yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah.
So some of them wanted to watch it as soon as it came out, and like the rowing girls were at a training camp in Italy, and they got a VPN, and they all like went to one of the girls' hotel rooms and all watched it together. And then for the swimmers, Kate and Bronte specifically, they didn't want to. Kate didn't want to watch it. Wasn't too raw, too soon for her. She said, talking to her after, she said, like, I don't know if she's watched it yet. This was at the games.
We need to find out.
Yeah, I need to follow it up.
Yeah.
And then Bronte was like, I don't want to watch it because I just need to stay in the zone. And Kate said, I don't want to watch it yet because it's just too raw and stuff. But they both had planned to watch it after, and I don't know.
I was actually with Bronte and Emma in so by the time it was but by the time the doco was airing on television, Brett and I were already over in Paris, in the staging camp. I was at that point on that day in the staging camp with the swim team, and you were already in Paris for the Olympics. And yeah, it was such a surreal conversation. We were just in the car heading from the pool, and Bronte and Emma were like, "Oh yeah, that thing is playing tonight. Yeah, I guess we'll watch it when it comes out." I think it had played the day before, and I think Bronte's partner's mum had watched it and gave it the thumbs up. So I was like, "Whew."
Okay, it's high praise.
And then the athletics team, I think the whole Athletics Australia was so awesome. They put on a big screening as well, and the whole track team watched it, and I didn't hear anything negative. It was all positive, so that's a good thing, I think, as well.
It was a good news story as well, right? So
Yeah. And I wonder if some of those tough moments where they are getting cut, that will be, in a way, helpful to them in the future and part of their story. So potentially I'd be curious to know what some of those people that were cut how they feel about it now.
Yeah, well, big shout out to Sarah Marriott, who was the one who we, I guess, let run the longest there and did a deep dive in her story.
Yeah.
And it's a sensitive thing. She's 19-year-old. She's not 28-year-old athlete. she's not long out of high school, and so we were really conscious of getting her buy-in and her understanding as to how we're going to shape the story, and she wanted to watch the vision back, which was interesting. She wanted to watch the vision back specifically because she said it was one of those meetings where you're so emotional, you sort of only remember a couple of things that were said. And she said, I just want to listen to it back because I want to hear all of the feedback to know what I need to work on
Wow.
next time around.
Mm.
And because initially when she asked, I want to watch the footage back, you sort of think, oh, okay, she's obviously maybe a bit worried about this.
Yeah.
But she was amazing. And
She watched it. She was happy for us to include it. And
yeah, she gave us the okay and gave us a big rap for the way we went about it, for asking her at the time and all that sort of stuff. And so that felt like we did all the right things. And then, yeah, I don't know, the way that she not
Well,
only
that's the athlete
Yeah,
mentality,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
That's it.
The difference between someone who's ready to give up and keep going.
yeah, that's right.
No, awesome. And a quick question on you mentioned that you were up editing, you're running down. Like people might imagine. I imagine it's. What was the crew like on something like these?
Slim.
All these doggos, yeah.
You're looking at it.
Yeah. So people, and probably a lot of docos out there would be, 10 people,
Yeah.
lighting, sound, everything.
Mm.
What does it look like when you guys do it, and how does that affect, do you think, the work you do? Because that more kind of removed and less invasive approach gets you in those moments that we're
Exactly,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
I think for this style of documentary, it works really well. Like it's really effective. And
if you had unlimited budget, some of these scenes you would still only pick one person be in the room or just
Exactly,
a little bit
yeah.
in the room. Yeah.
And then in terms of how we managed the documentary, so Brett and I co-directed Race to Paris, and then Callum Lawrence directed Forged in Steel. I guess we just shared the responsibilities, and we're just constantly running each other, keeping each other up to date with whatever was going on. We were editing on the fly, we were shooting on the fly, we were interviewing, shooting, editing, we were kind of just juggling the whole time. But I think and shout out to you, Bretto, like it's so awesome to have a partner and a person to be just like be able to completely lean on and just go, cool, this is what we're doing, and just you jump in on this task and I'll jump out here, and then we can just it was seamless. Like it was a really effective process, and I think was the reason why we were able to get it done on such slim with a slim crew.
In saying that, on that final day of rowing trials, the crew was 6 or 7.
That's true. Yeah,
like a
with
drone
the
operator, a
boom sound,
soundo, two camos, and then two camera assists, and then swimming trials was 3 of us. We had enough budget to pick some battles and go, okay, that's really important, so let's throw a bigger crew at that because there's benefit there.
Yeah.
And then, but most of it had to be 1 or 2
I mean,
person
yeah,
crews.
you'd pick a day. You'd go a day, where do we need the most support? And you'd bring in maybe, we chose to bring in extra help for interviews, master interviews, especially in other cities. But for the most part, we were the 2 that were there from the beginning of the shoot all the way through. The Aths segment was quite a solo experience as well. So you kind of just crew up where you need to based on the story. We couldn't fly a crew out to the Bahamas, obviously.
Yeah, we should tell the Bahamas story, I guess. So I'll set it up and then you do most of it, Nico. But the rowing was locked in first as a sport, and then we were going to do just a bit of swimming, and then Emma McKeon was locked in, and then the Campbell sisters got wind of it and wanted in on it. So then they expressed interest in it, so then they got involved.
They're like, okay, cool, we're doing a documentary on 2 sports, rowing and swimming. There's some nice synergy there. There's some nice,
Yeah. And then Channel 9 were kind of like, well, there's a lot of power in 3s, and we really want 2 sports, that's fine, but is it going to have enough density, and can that carry a full hour? And so let's explore some athletics. stories as well, which we did, and we have a great relationship with the media manager of athletics, Sasha Reiner, and she was fired up about it and was pitching the relay girls. And then we thought, yeah, that's great. That's a cool story. Where do they qualify? What's the go? It's just like, well, their qualification tournament is in the Bahamas in 3 weeks or something.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was like, all right, Nico, over to you.
There was we didn't have like a nice line of Bahamas contingency plan in the budget.
No, yeah.
Either. So when that came up, we had to make a big call because, again, it's that roller coaster of following live sport where you don't know what the result is.
Mm.
Okay.
Is it going to be worth it going there?
Exactly.
Exactly. And okay, you can go over there. Great. The team's happy to have you on the team and be at the staging camp, but then they're going into a World Athletics event. So are you even able to get a camera into the stadium to actually film the moment that you're going over to do, let alone whether they're going to do it or not? So immediately started up the conversations with World Athletics, trying to get accreditation and access and what can we shoot, what can't we shoot. It was honestly one of the craziest, most stressful things because I got on that flight to the Bahamas when we still didn't know the access that I was going to get at the stadium. It was a matter of just come to the stadium and we'll have a discussion. You'll definitely get mix zone interviews at the end, but we don't know about shooting field of play. And you kind of just had to roll the dice and see what happens. And this is not even, we don't know if they're going to qualify or not. So anyway, off I went to the Bahamas.
So in the lead up as well, right, I think it's an interesting, it's funny to reflect on this. At the same time, there was this rower by the name of Jack Cleary, who we love, who was a great character, and he missed out on the team and the rowing trials, but he was going to get this last chance
And we had,
row himself onto the Olympic team in Switzerland.
And we really invested in the storytelling of Jack. We really liked his story. We really liked his character. And yeah, we believe that this is a good story. And so Jack Cleary had a last chance. Yeah. In Switzerland.
In Switzerland at this thing called the Regatta of Death. The whole rowing world knows this regatta as the Regatta of Death.
Yeah.
It's like if you finish in the top 2, I think it is, then you book the last 2 spots in the Olympics. So great drama, great backdrop, everything. And we had enough budget to go to one or the other.
That's right, yeah.
And so I don't have a sports bet account. I'm not a sports gambler, but it was complete sports gambling, right? Because it's like, who's going to win?
Who are you backing?
Who are we backing? Are we backing this horse or that horse? And it was a toss of the coin, really. In the end, I think we went with athletics because we were like, well, at least if we go to athletics, then we get another sport. Whereas if we go to rowing, then if we go to rowing and he doesn't get in, then we've got another sad rowing story. If we go to athletics and they don't get in, then it's a sad story, but at least
it's another sport.
A third sport, so I guess we do that.
Yeah, and that's what we did, and then went over.
And then they made it in dramatic fashion with a photo finish, and it was all confusing, and then they gave the big jubilation at the end.
There was a big novelty ticket. It was a dream.
So we're like, oh my God, that was so worth it. And you can do it a million times over and not be that lucky. And
exactly,
but we lucked out.
We did luck
out. We
out.
were very happy with ourselves. You were very happy with yourself,
I think,
and deservedly so.
The day after was not really much on the agenda because we got the story. We shot everything we needed to. The conclusion was there. I think it was a day of going down water slides with the physios and
at the resort of the Bahamas.
At the resort of the Bahamas. So I'm not complaining, but it was a crazy fever dream of an experience, but I think it helped.
One of the great times.
Awesome. And we touch on Forged in Steel as well.
Yeah.
The third of the fourth actually of the docos you've been working on lately.
We have a coined term. It's the Good Shout Docuverse.
Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's what we called it at the start,
and it just kind of stuck.
And
taking over our screens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want to steal too much thunder from to Cal. So Callum Lawrence, who's been working with us since 2018.
Yep.
One of his first jobs, I think maybe the first job we ever put him on a plane to go do in 2018 when he first started was with the wheelchair rugby team. And he's travelled with the team ever since. And so we talk about our business being sort of stuck in the 4-year cycle of the games. He kind of went from the lead up to Tokyo with the wheelchair rugby team, experienced Tokyo with them, which was a big disappointment for the wheelchair rugby team.
Yep.
And then went through this process of making a full-length documentary for Primetime Channel 9 with them as well. So he, like us, was fully emotionally invested in that team because he had done the hours and the years with them and knows the characters and knows the people. And he did it without a co-director at his side the whole time. A lot of the other Good Shout team helped him enormously in different phases of it. But Cal took it. It was his cross to bear, and he did an amazing job and put himself through the ringer like we did. And yeah, the thing's amazing, and
Absolutely
we're
nailed
just
it.
very proud of him.
And we're quite, as Brett and I were quite hands off, to be honest. We were delivering Race to Paris, and then I think we delivered Race to Paris on the Friday. You were already over in Paris on that last week, and I flew to Paris on the Sunday. And so it was Cal's project. The unique thing about Forged in Steel, it was that Paralympics Australia were also heavily involved in it as well, who co-produced the documentary as well and supported Cal through that. So that was fortunate for that, for Cal. But Cal was the creative lead from the very beginning to the end, and did an incredible job.
And it's a tough one because of how many directions you can take it and how it is this team full of the gnarliest backstories and life experiences, and there's so many ways you can take it. And how do you choose between the guy who got a spinal injury playing football versus the girl who had a car accident versus the meningococcal backstory versus and I'm talking like in a weird sort of shorthand of it all, but like you kind of got to distill it to that because it's for this process, because it's just so dense and there's so many ways you can take the story, let alone then tell the story of
the team,
and it is elite sport and there's interest in that, and you got to get the balance right between doing the, for lack of a better phrase, like the head patting Paralympic sort of story, like and then the elite sport. These guys are professionals. You got to get that balance right, because you can't do one without the other, because it's not true to the movement and to the amazing people that they are. And so Cal struck that balance, I think, really, really well, because if you're in the team, you've travelled with the team, a lot of that backstory stuff and a lot of the
disability is just like,
you just know it, and you're just trying to win a gold medal, for God's sake.
That's right. And
so to have the presence of mind to go, hang on, to mum and dad sitting on the couch at 8:30 on a Sunday night or whatever. Let's remember just how unbelievable some of these stories are, and the way that they've navigated the things that life has thrown at them. So you got to lead with that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of my favourite things about that doco is just hitting you over the head with, like, I think we just start off with all the players just listing their disabilities and their impairments, and it's just right in your face, and it's just there, and it's like, cool, that's been addressed. Now let's go try win a gold medal. You know what I mean?
And from their point of view, they've told that story a million times
100%.
themselves, and there's more to them than their disability. So yeah, really cool.
That's right.
And another doco to go check out. 9 Now, I think it's still on there.
Yeah, and that one's on Stan as well.
Oh, it's Stan.
Yeah, that's on Stan.
That's on Stan, yeah.
Well, Race to Paris is on 9 Now.
And Raiders Rising is
on 9 Now.
And then FIFA Plus for moments.
Yeah. Lots of homework to sink your teeth into. And and you mentioned you were in some cases you were with the athletes in the Olympic Village when the docos came out. And so what was your role at the Olympics after you'd done these projects?
So we had two different roles. There was a team of 3 videographers for the Australian Olympic Committee, myself being one, Nico being another, and young Hugh from Brisbane being the third. My role was being in the village, basically as a Channel 9 camera operator. The Tokyo Games being a COVID Games really flipped a lot of stuff on its head for the Olympics. Usually the way it works at a Games is if Channel 9 wants something or the host broadcaster wants something in the village, they have a camera operator go to the village, get a day pass, have an escort, then have to get out of there in 3 hours or whatever. And that was not possible in Tokyo. So the AOC decided to have an on-team videographer to be able to service the broadcaster. Obviously, the broadcaster is paying an unbelievable amount of money for the access and for the rights. And so a lot of their job is to service the host broadcaster and give them as much value as they can. And so that's where we come in, being on team videographers, knowing a lot of the athletes. We're there in tracksuit, a familiar face, and we're there basically to do anything that we need to as far as doing social media videos for the Australian Olympic Committee's social media, but being a resource for Channel 9. It's obviously a big commercial beast, the Olympics, so a lot of sponsorship servicing and that sort of stuff as well goes on. And it's incredible. The village is a really special place. You sort of feel like you're in the center of the universe there while the biggest thing in the world is happening and you're in the sort of the beating heart of it. It's an amazing feeling. But at the same time, 22 days I did the Olympics and half the Paralympics I probably spent, I don't know, like 7 weeks, 6 weeks or something in that village. And so it was pretty stir crazy because my job was to be there like 5 minutes away from a camera and the village at all times.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't get to see much sport and that sort of thing. I didn't get to really see a whole heap of Paris during that period.
Right.
And then Nico, you were sort of the opposite. Nico saw a lot of Paris.
Yeah, saw a lot of Paris. So I was based outside of the village in the Media Press Centre, which, basically we would just follow the results of the team. And there's these things called grassy knolls. If you're in the thing, it's the most... if you're in this scene within Olympic sport, grassy knolls are the things that you just do every day. And so that's pretty much all the non-rights holders, so your Channel 7s and everyone who's not got the rights to the Olympics will gather, meet an athlete who's just won a medal, and then we do a on the spot interview and just talk to the athlete and shoot some B-roll of them, and then pretty much just doing that every day. The difference is I wasn't in the village for the Olympics, so the hotel, it's so weird to think about. I'd ride my bike through the Arc de Triomphe every morning on the way to the Media Press Centre, do my job, great, big days, and ride it back. And the roads were all closed, so you could just like ride around and it's a real whirlwind. And I remember after doing the documentary, after doing Race to Paris and delivering it and being cooked and then going, oh my God, I need to go over to Paris now and like cover an Olympics. How am I going to do that? And you just find a way, you just get through it. And I guess, a little croissant and a little coffee every now and then goes
a long way.
Goes a long way.
Goes a long way.
But it's such a different role from what we were doing with the documentaries where we're living and breathing with the athletes in their space, in those high emotion moments when they're just found out that they're going to the Olympics or they've just found out that they're not going to the Olympics. And then, then we're part of the process at the actual games and doing the job.
And we'll wrap it up, but a couple final quick ones. What are some of those moments that in all your projects that stick with you? Like, what are the standouts? You've been to a lot of you've been at a lot of those moments, so it could be a hard question. But yeah, what are the standouts?
Good question. First one that comes to mind for me so we did a screening of the NRLW doco with the team at Dendy. The Raiders were really proactive and really awesome in the way that they actually shaped their sponsor launch night, their season launch night this year as like a movie premiere.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to watch that whole thing with the team. And so to hear them laugh and cry and feel it in the room, it was a really cool thing. And so that's one thing.
That's funny you picked that, because that for me would be I hate that.
Really,
like watching stuff that I've done in front of people. I can't stand being in there or showing anything to people.
Well, I feel similarly. It's more the fact in that case that I wasn't super hands-on in that edit. So I was really proud of the edit.
Removed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was really proud of the edit that Martin Bellew, Jason O'Dwyer, Sam Hosking, Johnny Barrington, the team put together.
Yeah.
And so I had seen it maybe in its final form, maybe 2 or 3 times, or before that viewing. So I was just there with the popcorn, like, this is great. But if I had watched it 50 million times because I was editing it, then it would have been a different experience. Yeah. So it was more of like I don't know, proud of my team.
Yeah.
It's a good one, Bredo. I like that one. I've kind of already talked about it, but I reckon the moment there was just so much lead up into the Bahamas qualification race and whether they would qualify or not, and so many steps that we had to take to get to there. And like, okay, cool, athletics are keen, great. The athletics girls are keen to have us on, great. We can go to the staging camp and do the interviews, cool. World Athletics are happy for us to be there, great. What does access look like? I don't know. We've got the budget to do the flight. Just get on the flight, figure it out. Talk to the person that I need to talk to in Bahamas about the access. Yeah, just go wherever you want. Just stay out of the way of our shots. Okay, cool. We've got the access. Are the girls going to be able to do it? I don't know. I hope so. I think so. Get to the thing. Going, okay, right? This is the moment. Like, this is what the last 3-4 weeks of my life has been leading to, this like a moment. And I'm just the videographer. Like, these girls are the ones that are like running and qualifying. So whatever's going through their head would be a million times more than this. But yeah, that moment where they cross the line, everyone's looking around like, did they qualify? Who's qualified? I don't know. That moment that sweet man handed out that novelty ticket, that huge, ridiculously large novelty ticket to the 4 girls. And I knew, oh my God, they've made it. That felt pretty good. Yeah. I slept well that night.
And you were filming that moment, right?
I was filming. Camera, I was about maybe 10 meters away, filming the moment, and look, we won't get into it. There may have been tears, but it was a special
behind
moment.
The camera.
Yeah,
amazing. And you also mentioned that your first big project, the World Cup, was one of those like dream projects. Is there another dream project, and or is there already one that's coming? What is the dream thing you want to cover as a good shout next?
That's a really good question.
It's a damn good question. The cop-out answer is we are so exhausted from this year that we don't want to think about it, and that we just want to live in the success of 2024 and 2023 and then think about it next year. But there's always another Olympics around the corner. I think the really big dream that you just can't ignore right now is what are the opportunities for Brisbane 2032, like 100 games? And so it's in some ways it's a long time in the future, but in others it's actually not for the amount of planning that we might need to do to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be around Brisbane 2032. It will be it's such a crazy, awesome coincidence that Australia will be having a home Olympic and Paralympic Games at about the time that we'll be a mature business by then, having the experience that we've had over the last 7-8 years as a company. And so that's the big shining thing in the future. What it is it long form? Is it lots of short form? Is it a mix of both? Who knows? But that is the big sort of North Star and the big scary and exciting thing in the future.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. I think the thing for me, and maybe this is just because of the aftermath of the 2 years that we've had, there's not really a project in mind that excites me at the moment. What does excite me is we've got a really good team, a good shout, and the opportunities that have come our way and what we've done with it is not just a you and me thing. That is the team that we have. And I'm really, really excited about continuing to build that team and to continue to find opportunities that we as a company as a whole go, yeah, let's have a crack at that. But right now, let's let the dust settle. Let's take our stocks and let's build that team to take on the next crazy thing that we want to do.
So with that in mind, if there's any young people watching or listening who are sports mad and love their cameras, then give us a call.
Give us a call. Absolutely.
And I reckon I got a project. I think I don't want to jinx it, but I think there'll be a dual Raiders premiership coming up soon.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
that might be.
Yes,
I was thinking that
That
as well.
might be a good one
premiership.
to follow.
Yeah, we'll give Ricky a call.
Yeah, give Ricky a call. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
the chat. Awesome to hear behind the scenes from that. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone for listening.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Cheers.
having us. Bye.